AI driving the industries of the future. So when we're done, we will know that we're either going to become, batteries to our robotic overlords, or we will all have beach houses and no one will work and we'll sit and paint paintings of rainbows and have universal income. So those are the two options. Really what we have here is, it's a really good panel because it represents a large breadth and depth of different industries where artificial intelligence have really infused the industry. So Thorsten from IBM touches a lot of different aspects, but he's going to wear his self-driving car AI hat, at least partially today, so that's exciting. Miro is the finance industry, and how is artificial intelligence infusing finance? Dexin is everything. She's actually the director of artificial intelligence, so she represents everything here. And Óscar, oil and gas, and other things, IoT. So what I was planning to do is just paint a very brief mood picture about what has happened in the world of artificial intelligence and why do we have a panel right now on this subject. So in my past life, I actually ran the Institute for Robotics and Intelligent Machines at Chaddick. I had a self-driving car in 2007 when the first DARPA self-driving challenges were going on. I had a Porsche, actually. It was a gorgeous self-driving car that did really well until it drove straight into a wall at the final. One of the worst moments of my life, actually. But what was interesting then, so this was 2007, it was not that long ago, is AI, meaning the kind of algorithmic foundations for decision making, and machine learning, which is the kind of, it's a subfield of AI, if you will, the way Óscar phrased it. So ML, if you're cool, by the way, you never say machine learning, you say ML. So ML, it's really looking at this question of, ultimately it's a data-driven classification scheme that's drawing from stochastics and optimization, but basically you get all this data, is the part going to break or not? Right? That's ML. And me as a roboticist, right, that's the embodied part of it. So we can build robots without doing artificial intelligence, but now we see more and more robotics and AI being talked about at the same time. But back then, the self-driving cars in 2007, almost none of them had anything that we would call artificial intelligence in any meaningful way in them. And now it's absurd to think of a self-driving car without AI technologies in it. And the interesting thing that had happened over the last decade or so is not that we've developed new and better algorithms. There are really two things that happened that dramatically changed the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the first was really, these things are data-driven. And all of a sudden, the internet is filled with pictures of kittens, right? So if I want to make a classifier that can tell you whether or not I'm looking at a kitten, I have millions of data points to go by. So the prevalence of data is one of the things that actually made machine learning all of a sudden effective, right? So now we have the data. The other thing that happened is, just because you have data and you have an algorithm doesn't mean that you can meaningfully actually say anything about it, because you don't have the compute power to churn through the data. So the other thing that happened was compute. Right? So all of a sudden we had really beefy multi-core processors that could churn through this data, and this confluence of compute power and prevalence of data meant that artificial intelligence all of a sudden really became a valid, feasible technology that, yeah, we've seen it in Tesla's self-driving cars or in Netflix customer preference algorithms, but it's everywhere now, and it's not going away. So with that, what I asked the panelists to do was basically explain a little bit about who they are, what AI, what role it plays in your particular industry, and tell us one surprising thing about yourselves that wasn't in your official bio. So let's start with Thorsten and work our way back.
Okay, hey. My name is Thorsten SchrÖer, based in Düsseldorf, Germany here. Actually went to Georgia Tech in 1995. and this is the first time I have an interaction with Chaddick after 25 years, interestingly enough. So I'd like to thank you guys to bring this together. It's really a great thing to have and a great thing to do. So looking forward to number 4 and 5 and 6 coming years, I guess. And the other story I'd like to share is when I went to Chaddick in 95, the company which hired me at that time, the boss went to tech and his boss went to tech. So when I've been sent over there with a scholarship, I had no clue what Chaddick really is. Let's be honest, coming as a little kid from Germany. So it's interesting how things really developed to that end. So again, I'm from IBM. I manage for IBM our automotive and electronics business in Germany. And AI is, of course, high on my agenda for the last 6-7 years. You all heard about Janet Watson and Watson with the Jeopardy in 2011. That was kind of the born of that particular topic. But AI is so much older than that, of course. I mean, we are right now in the year of 50 years of moon landing. And if you think what happened that time when we put the first man on the moon, at that time 4,000 IBMers worked on that particular project out of 400,000 engineers overall. Huge numbers. But at that time, the interesting thing is, just imagine how much compute power was available at that time. So there was a huge IBM machine which was kind of the size of this thing here, which was holding how much space for an MP3 files. Do you think, have a judgment, how many MP3 file storage was available in such computer at that time in the, middle 1960s? How many MP3 files on one of those machines? It's 5, okay? So of those machines, you had to have 5 of those machines to put a man on the moon and bring him safely back. So if you think now how many MP3 files you can hold on these in terms of computing, the outcome is that you can send at the same time about 1,000 Apollo rockets to the moon. So much on the story in regards of compute power. And this is where I'm spent my life within IBM. I'm really a tech guy and looking forward for the rest of the discussion.
Hi, my name is Mira Gregorovitch. I'm based in London. Work in finance, more in tech kind of layer. When we started my story, I came to tech. That was the year 2011. I studied also ISY industrial engineering. And it was a great time. And as someone mentioned, the tech really opens many doors. So yeah, it opened doors. So my first job was in Silicon Valley. So it was kind of the tech place to be that time. And since then, I've moved a lot of industries. And currently, I work at London Stock Exchange. You might not associate it with technology. It's a 300+ year old institution with the continuous operations. We are third biggest stock exchange. It's not just stock exchange. We are a company, actually consortium of 18 companies. And technology is the key driver because we're moving from more like finance. We almost call ourselves technological company providing financial services. So I work in the CTO office. So I'm well connected in the technological community within the group. And the main focus of mine is the data science and AI integration across the company. It sounds like a big job because the whole landscape is slightly fragmented because different businesses, acquisitions, and but there's a huge potential. When you see all the amazing level of maturity across the business, it's mind-blowing. Today, if you want to raise money, stock exchange is the great place. But it's not just about raising money. We talk about entrepreneurship. So there are a lot of other companies within the group which would help you to actually raise the money. And the important aspect is the data. Today, we call about data. It's the fuel. Someone said it's the new oil. I always argue it's not that simple as with oil because to turn oil into petrol, it's quite known. With data, you don't know what you're looking for. And financial industry has another aspect which sometimes might not be seen. And it's quite difficult when you're entrepreneurial because there's lots of regulation. It's not that easy. You need to be a friend with your regulator. We in the United Kingdom quite we are quite fortunate because the regulator, believe it or not, is quite entrepreneurial and quite innovative. So they start up a couple of sandboxes, blockchain sandbox, AI sandbox. We work with them very closely. What I like about the team we have, we are a truly international company, and it kind of brings me back to Georgia Tech, where I had 17 different nationalities in my class. So my team, any nationality, you name it, and it's amazing. It works, and it's really good to see the whole cooperation within the industry. And two things, kind of, which might be slightly different than about me. Besides finance, I like technology, and I like instruments. I like playing music. So I played in marching band at Georgia Tech. So I was only one European and only one master student in the whole band of 400 people. And I like playing quite unusual instruments. So I was learning didgeridoo, which is the kind of Australian, New Zealand, the Kiwi instrument, and also I now learning playing bagpipes, Scottish bagpipes. So you don't want me as your neighbor because I bet you wouldn't get any good sleep. So that's it. Thank you.
I totally understand that because I also played in a marching band. I played saxophone at that time, and I always got a ban on my door because it was too loud, so the neighbors hate us.
Were you there at the same time?
Yeah, actually, as the third ISYE graduate in this panel.
Were you on the band at the same time?
No, I was not in Georgia Tech at that time. So I did my master and PhD at ISYE, graduate 2011. Yeah, so actually Georgia Tech again, I learned about my current company, which is Linde PLC, through a research project at Georgia Tech. I also met my husband from Georgia Tech, who also did a PhD there. So, you know, life is all about Georgia Tech. And my company is the world's largest industrial gas company, which is not so sexy as self-driving car. It's a very traditional industry. Actually, most of the time I worked in business, so I had a few roles in supply chain management, product management, business development. But as a good ISYE graduate, when the topic about digitalization and artificial intelligence came in scope, we founded this team. I immediately smelled the potential of how a data-driven decision can benefit the company. So I joined this current digitalization team in the corporation. So we work a lot with startups, and we also have our own data scientist and software engineer to develop AI solutions for the company. One thing surprising about me, my childhood dream was to become a diplomat. Doesn't match with the technology, mainly because of I really like to understand and interact with people with different background, and I have a deep love for languages.
I think you've had enough of me already in the morning, right? You would agree with that, Magnus? Do you really want to go there?
No, I don't want to go.
All right. So the things that are not in my bio, including last night, are that I, on top of loving my family, I admire Jimi Hendrix. How could you not, right? No, if you like music, and you know, within the world of soccer, and I know I'm stepping on dangerous grounds here. You have Real Madrid and the rest. Now, in the world, well, we can talk about the best club of the century, 13 Champions League, so forth and so on. But anyway, Bayern Munich is a very good, close one to Real Madrid. Having said that, what I am doing that is different lately is learning to be a DJ together with my son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, electronic music. So music is fun. I like old music, so that's that.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to start it off, and then I hope that there are going to be AI-ish questions from the audience. But my first question, and this is really to all of you, is let's fast forward 10 years, 15 years into the future. What will your industries look like? Will there be people there? Will it all be machine-driven decisions? What are the things that people will still be doing? What are the things that people maybe shouldn't be doing that we're helping them not do, for instance? So Who wants to take a crack at this? Will there be bankers 15 years from now? Yeah. Okay.
I think no. Bankers maybe. Today it's the new concept. You may see millennials. They love talking to people, right? So there will be banker. It might be AI, super generated, banker. There might be human person, but all the processes today, you might not see it. It's behind the walls of the big, shiny skyscrapers. There's gonna be no one because, for instance, we as a stock exchange, we are marketplace, we are infrastructure, we are like piping. So I think that one day you will see quite full automation. We can talk about the blockchain-based transfer of ownership. That's the stock exchange. That's the new stock exchange. Everything is going to be connected to all your sensors. That's it. What I think, people will be there because you need to have an aspect of the ethical layer, which still can't be done by AI. And it's really important. For instance, I'll give you an example, credit score. And people, like most of you maybe, or some of you, entrepreneurs go into your banker, if, for instance, if there is no investor available, so you need money, you need to raise money, so your banker will assess your credit score, the possibility of default. And there is a bias. So who can tell that you are a reliable person? So I still think that there will be a human aspect, but the rest of it will be, I believe, quite highly automated, especially in the, I would say, the infrastructure layer. But there will be new services, new values, and then I believe that's the place for humans. So we always saying that's going to be AI-powered humans. So cooperation, human and machine.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that 100% of all jobs are going to be affected by AI. That's very clear. An internal story that we have in our own operations, our hardware business, we still have a $10 billion hardware business, and we work there with AI Watson for the last 7 years. And what we have done there is the key dispatchers, supply chain managers, spending all their time following parts. It's a pure build-to-order kind of process right now. They got for over 2 years 10% off of their time to teach an AI system, a Watson, what's happening with problems in terms of supplier shortages, parts quality, and kind of things. So we fed the beast in terms of what are the typical problems, and now we have a so-called a butler. So if a problem comes up where a part is faulty or is coming in too late, the AI is going to helping the dispatcher to make a decision, because these kind of decisions are still today heavily based on experience, and that helped big time to have a supply chain manager with by far less experience with this assistant of Watson to be able to do as good decision on how to deal with the shortage of a part than somebody who has 30 years of experience. Did that reduce the amount of people we have in our supply chain? No. Did it help big time to improve the overall performance? Yes. So the outcome is that those people who had spent time in the past juggling around Excel sheets and SAP ERP system interface in terms of trying to find out what's happening with this particular supplier, they are now working on these very tough questions where a computer cannot help. But all the standard stuff, this assistant is going to help. He's not taking over. The advisor is not taking over, but giving facts to the dispatcher to make a decision which is based on a lot of history and a lot of experience, not by one individual, but by hundreds and thousands of people who fed that system in that particular setup. So again, I think the jobs are affected. They're going to change, but not per se it's going to be reduced per default.
I think 10 years, my view is that yes, technology is going to be there, available to dramatically transform industries. However, from practice, I don't think that's going to change that dramatically. There are probably 3 factors I can think of that will slow the change. First is, as Josef in the previous talk said, it's about culture. I think in most industrial companies, the culture does not allow a systematic integration of AI solutions, because perhaps leadership lacks trust, perhaps there's not a systematic data collection process, and a lot of homework needs to be done. And the second one is, as you have mentioned, ethics issues. The EU, for example, has AI High Council, which installed, it started to install ethics for AI solutions, which means all AI solutions developed here is going to be audited so that there's always a fallback on human intervention. Such a guideline is going to slow the process as well. And I think we are just not there to digest all the available technology so that the decision can be made purely by robots.
10 years from now, I don't think we have a clue. And I'm talking industry or AI. Patterns that we see that may be developing and resulting in what in 2-3 years, we can take a guess. From a technology acceptance perspective, and I think that's what you hinted at, we know that human beings are only able to keep up pace with 50% of the technology advance, more or less. With accelerating change we're seeing, it's even less. It's going to go down probably to 30%. So we have a challenge in keeping up pace with the technology advancements. Now, how does AI affect to that approach, or let's say growth? Greatly. But quite honestly, AI, a thermostat was AI 20 years ago. It was just based on if and then, right? But it took a decision for you. We call AI to what is magic today, but 3 to 5 to 10 years from now, it may not be magic anymore. So part of the pattern we see is that it's not that AI is going to give us data, hopefully not. It's going to give us a choice of decisions to be made. I want that data to be curated into insight, so upon which I can make a decision. So I'm a realistic optimistic, right? I am not a Luddite. So I think AI is going to put us in a better place where much of the robots you're going to be building are going to take away mundane tasks from us, so we can do more creative things, make better decisions, number one. Number two, take away much of the risk activities, for example, in my industry, that we do as humans, like checking holes where you have methane risk. So a much better world is just another step. 10 years from now, I have no clue. 2-3 years from now, a better place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So if AI will help or will start help making decisions or even make decisions for us, do you think there is a risk for AI to make humans stupid? Because we're going to stop thinking, basically, if computers will decide for us.
Sure, I think it's like, 20 years ago, probably you can remember a lot of phone numbers, and we don't do that today, right?
Yeah,
and
or students don't solve equations anymore.
Exactly.
They just go and
So
look it up on the internet.
I have a 1-year-old daughter, and every day I think, okay, what kind of world is she going to live in, and how can I prepare her for that? Because I think the current education system is not preparing children for a future where, what is intelligence? What is our intelligence, and how can it contribute to the world value? So I think this is something that requires deeper understanding and evaluation.
May I? Very quick. So may I answer with an analogy here?
Absolutely.
So back in 100 years ago, 150 years ago, people would have to know about horses, their diseases, how to feed them, in order to have a ways to move from point A to point B. As you had cars coming in, that knowledge was lost. Were humans more stupid because of cars coming in, not knowing how to manage horses? I don't think so. I don't think we will be more stupid, quite the opposite. I think we'll be more intelligent if we can, because that's an evolution thing. And I think we have great tools to become better humans, do better for society. We need to put limitations, but that's always been the case with technology, right? Realistic optimists, right? So we really need to make sure we have that red button We really need to make sure that we put limits. But we we live in the center of the world now. We think now the world is going to change. Well, it's been changing for centuries. We just happen to be more sensitive to what is going on now. And we need to be more careful. But no, I don't think we're going to be more.
That's because we also live it. We didn't live the time where horses were replaced by cars, so it wasn't part of our everyday life. Whereas now we're more obviously observing it because we're part of this revolution, if we want to call it like that. But I'm not saying it's going to make us stupid, it's just a question. I just think that there are many, many things to take into account which we don't even foresee or we can't even foresee yet. You mentioned ethics and stuff like that. And at least for the general people, people hear AI as a buzzword, but there is a big lack of education yet of what it means and what the impact is. If you talk about AI to somebody who works in a factory today, he thinks it's going to basically make him lose his job. Which might be true to some extent, and jobs will evolve obviously as they evolved over time. But I think we need to also do a great deal of education to people to show them the benefits as you do here.
I just would like to add, this is a very good question, and a lot of people question the whole AI concept. But I'm saying that the whole point and the character of jobs will change dramatically. Back in 2010, I visited Seoul, South Korea, and South Korea really advanced technologically. And then I noticed there are people, like in supermarket, every shelf had a person, like shopping assistant. And the person was there to explain what's new, what's good, some diet recommendations. And I was like, oh, we don't have this in Europe because, there's not enough people. Because people are busy with unpacking. People are busy with stuff, putting stuff onto the shelves. So I think that's what's going to happen. People will have, first, more time, and they will be able to provide more customized services. So I guess you have this experience. You go into your bank, right? And have you ever had any good experience as a customer? Yeah, there you go. And that's the whole thing, because the people are so busy and they do in the meaningless and quite repetitive task instead of providing service. And there's one point I wanted to mention, and the businesses will have to change. And it all started, we might have not seen it, but it started with, I will mention, social media. They are changing the way how we think and how we use services. So next generation of people, they will be digital natives, and they will require the same services from the banks, from the energy suppliers, from gas suppliers. They would like to have this seamless service that they have with, I don't know, Facebook, Instagram. It's easy to buy, or Apple Pay, easy to buy. And if you go to China, if you look at the WeChat, for instance, how the financial industry changed in Asia, then you have to wonder, it must come to Europe also. And then Facebook, for instance, acquired the banking license back in 2016 in Ireland. And then a lot of traditional banks started like wondering, oh, we might be out of business. And then you see Deutsche Bank, they dismissed 1/5 of their global workforce. So something is happening. Obviously, there's regulation, ethics, but I think the public is driven by the technological change.
One thing that's fascinating, I think, just listening is, this is a panel on technology, and we talk about people, right? I mean, it's ultimately a question about acceptance, it's a question of ethics, it's a question of disrupting our lives. I mean, I think one thing that is really fascinating about the AI, ML, autonomy, robotics, disruption is how much it's a question about us. So I don't like panel chairs that insert themselves too much in the discussion, but I will. I don't know if you saw Microsoft, did you read about Microsoft? They launched a Twitter bot, it's a little over 3 years ago, Tweets. And this was it was an AI on Twitter, and it started with the following tweet. Humans, why can't every day be National Puppy Day? So it's a very cute and cuddly way to introduce yourself to the world. Less than 24 hours later, Microsoft had to pull it off the internet because this thing had become a racist, anti-Semitic asshole, right? I mean, basically, it was learning horrible things from people on the internet. And this is I mean, AIs will learn whatever it is data we feed them. And this is something that I think it really forces the question that, yeah, we have technology, but it's also a question about us and how we're going to interact with said technology. So, are there any other? Yeah, we have tons of questions. If it's short.
Just a real short, because I think it was really good question. I think it will widen the intelligence between humans, because it's if you look at today how you spend your spare time. If you know, with the AI-driven education, I probably could have learned more based on my lifetime. But maybe some people will become lazy and say, okay, I will stop making decisions. So I think there will be a widening of gap between intelligence if we are not addressing this topic.
So working? Yeah. When we look at AI, or specifically machine learning, deep learning, it's all just like one big black box where it's really hard to understand how it works, which has a lot of problems like self-driving cars that crash into things and you don't know why it happens, that kind of thing. And the question is, will there be AIs that can explain their behavior, that can explain their decision making?
It's not a question, will there be? There are. The example that I raised with our supply chain managers, if they get a recommendation from the system to make a decision, do I fly this part, do I get it via the ship or whatsoever, the AI provides a recommendation and a probability how good that recommendation is, and what is the data that this recommendation is based on. So it's always important that the individual can make a judgment how good that recommendation is. Do we really have data which drives a recommendation like that on the one side? And how often did that part already had a problem that you come up with a recommendation with a probability of 90%, for example? So just believing what the AI says without knowing what was the feed into the overall system that is really educated to make a judgment, that's the most important thing there, in order to really get trust on that, based on the Twitter bot that you just referred to.
I got actually a good question here. Our department has been working with some universities, and there's a program which will give you the main indicators and probability which indicator influence the outcome. There's always probability, and sometimes it's not. You don't get like 100%. Oh, this factor influence the decision 100%. So there's always like probability. And this is slightly problematic for regulators, because they would like to know if you give him money or if you decline to give money to this person, what was the main reason? So previously it was a credit score, history, and simple. But so this is going to slow down the AI application within the financial industry, at least in Europe. And the explainability, it's a problem. But as Thorsten said, they will be always human. So there will be always recommendation. AI will maybe pre-process data, give a recommendation, but there will be always human making a decision and making it a rational decision. So that's my opinion.
We had another question there. You had that, right?
Well, actually, since the topic is open, I was a few weeks ago in a startup environment in Berlin. And I was talking to a very smart French guy. Yeah, very, very smart. It might sound surprising. He wasn't there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's brilliant. And okay, please, let's focus. So, obviously in France, and you know, you have a campus in France, education is based on fundamental science and mathematics and physics and modeling. When we go to engineering school in France, we become very good modelers. And I was talking to this guy and explaining to him my work. We're developing physics-based models. And he looked at me and he said, oh, do we really still teach this in France? And I'm like, why? He said, why do you need physics? We have data. We can understand everything. And the question to the teachers and the professors here, so what would you teach in the future if kids now do not need physics and modeling, and they just need an artificial intelligence to explain the world? This really fundamentally worries me. Add into this another comment. Of course, we can get AI to tell us what parameter helped it to make the decision, but no one is able to explain, or AI cannot explain, how did it get to that decision. And these two aspects really scares the hell out of me, to be totally honest and open with you.
We tend to think binary here. That we have AI doesn't mean that we cannot still teach physics, right? Okay, so I'm just answering the first part, right? So of course we need to teach physics, and this man makes a living of teaching AI, physics. So it's just a different way. So again, sophisticated way of improving the way we do things, and we focus now on a different teaching and different learning method and different material, but we will continue teaching physics and computer science and so forth and so on. So yes, there will be, I mean, for the better of Georgia Tech, we better keep teaching, right, to students. So that's my answer to the first question. Of course, it's compatible, perfectly compatible. As to, it refers to the prior question, if AI cannot explain itself, its behavior whatsoever, and this is the realistic part of me being an optimistic, well, there has been cases where we do not understand what is going on in the coding of AI, and the AI itself codes itself, right? So to that point, which happens, let's be realistic, that has happened and will continue to happen, I do believe we need to pay attention to the red button, which is I'll stop the machine. So we need to put limits, like in anything in technology. This is one of the limits. Does it scare you? Yeah, I understand the scare. Yeah, let's work on it.
Right, so just my 2 cents on that. For example, today, a lot of the control systems are largely based on physical models. I don't think that will change in a short time. You can say that we can go into a data-driven world, but a lot of the data quality is in reality very bad, right? We talk about IoT, it's a gradual process, and I think it takes a while until we go there. But still, even if you have the data, does it really replace physical model? Because I think physical model actually is a shortcut to many decisions than data. That's my answer to the question.
Right, so we have, actually, I'm getting frantic signals here. So we have one more question.
Okay.
We're going to have some closing statements, and then...
Okay. One question. I'm a civil engineer coming from one of these industries that are really ancient, working on stones, etc.
Yeah, we're going to have digital stones in the future.
Right. Been at Georgia Tech in 2000, essentially started doing a lot of 3D modeling, starting a lot of data innovations, etc. If I look now at I'm still working in this area. If I look at our industry today, even in Germany, like 3 to 4% of our projects are digitally planned so that you can say you have some kind of structured data. We're looking at AI and machine learning algorithms. We have some machines that have sensors. We have some pictures of construction site, etc. But essentially, there is no data. And if I see it, it took us 20 years to get 5% of our industry design digital. How long does it take us to get real site data that is worth actually analyzing and doing predictions on? And my worry is a little bit, or I'm kind of feeling like, I mean, we look at these stuff today, and if I like, we're probably far too early for our customers again. And I'm wondering a little bit if there are a couple of industries that do not have enough data. Do we take care of them? Or they're not in focus. I mean, financial is in focus. Automotive is in focus. Obviously, I can get data, right? I have other business ideas. I can even do different things with the kind of car data. But there are a couple of industries that don't have data. Are we losing that in those industries? I don't know. It's not about the people, but it's about different. And for example, construction, I mean, we're responsible for probably more pollution than the whole automotive industry.
Just a short comment. You're talking about the day-to-day challenge we face in developing AI solutions. Even as an industrial company, we have 1,000 plants in the world, and we have a lot of sensors. Still, most of the data quality is not good enough. And when you when you try to develop a solution, usually the most important data are somehow missing, and it means that you can't develop a solution at all. So I think for every industry, it's a stepwise process. And I think sitting not far from you is a 3D computer vision startup, and especially for constructions, right? So I think eventually with the leading of financial industry, people will see the value and it will come.
I'll wait another 20 years, that's fine.
All right, so everyone gets
Maybe last comment, really.
that counts as your closing statement.
I believe it too. But there's a really good point about the data, available data, but there's a second one, it's the legal ownership of data. Because in highly competing industries, some of the parties might not agree to share the data even internally. So that's another problem. So it's kind of similar. We got data, we can't use them. So it was just a comment.
You can take your closing statement while you're Do you want to share any last nuggets?
Each one of us.
Yeah, everyone gets a closing.
Then I built on this comment because I think it's an interesting topic. I think the magic word, what you are kind of not raised, but what you meant is this digital twin at the end of the day for construction industry, right? And this is in preparation, put it this way. But still, there are certain industries out there which has a very different turning ratio on change. We had change before. And of course, like cement industry, construction, all those guys, it takes much longer to build a digital twin of a plant, for example, versus from a car or other things. So, but this digital twinning, I think it's a topic which we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years, much more beyond the smaller things of the IoT, which we already built on. So, a big topic to watch at, I think.
Okay, my closing remark: AI, it's amazing, but first we have to start with collaboration. So to get the data together, to get a meaningful data, and then AI, it's not just to be plug in and magic happens. Someone has to design the AI or the let's say data science machine learning algorithm. So it's going to happen. But the third one, I would say, the end game is that we will not work that much. So that's my closing remark. The 9-to-5 concept, I guess, it's outdated, and there's so much to do besides AI.
Because education and human development is deep to my heart, maybe a little bit too big. I think to develop AI solution and to prepare ourselves for AI, we need to break silos, not only silo between department of enterprises, but also silos between countries, between industries, between everything. Only that we can prepare and enhance ourselves instead of destroying ourselves. Thanks.
History tells us that Luddite approaches to technology acceptance are nonsense. Thanks to vapor machinery, expectancy of life has gone from 35 years to 80 years, right, in less than a century. So just get on with it, number one. Number two, digital AI is all about people, you said it. It's about the technology acceptance of it, and we have no excuses to embrace the already present future, which is how AI is affecting our lives and work, you mentioned it. So if you don't get on with it, you are positioning yourself wrongly so. So get on with it, learn to code if you need to, do the digital twin, go to Georgia Tech, get better education, and join in the crowd, because I think what is coming is just going to help us as a human race if we do it properly.
I think you should just drop the mic. Thank you.